What's going on guys, Josh here, and in this video I'm going to be bringing back an old YouTube trend called how much I spend in a week. Now as you guys know, I'm currently traveling around all of Europe, currently waiting for the American consulate in Sydney, Australia to give us an interview date so that we can go and get our investment visa. So while we're doing that and while Sydney is in lockdown, my wife and I thought it was a great idea to go around traveling Europe whilst also working. So welcome to this week's video, how much I spend in a week as a 29-year-old entrepreneur in Greece. So if you guys are new here, just wanted to welcome you in. My name is Josh and I'm a 7-figure entrepreneur who loves all things e-commerce, productivity and personal finance. So if any of those sound great to you, I'd encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And now just to preface the video, my week will be starting on Wednesday to Tuesday for a full 7 days, breaking down my personal and also my business expenses. The other 2 days that we had, we landed in Greece. We didn't really do anything. On our last day, we just left Greece. So with all that being said, let's get straight into day one. So day number one, let's start this off with our Airbnb cost. So each night our Airbnb cost is going to be $34.70. Next, for breakfast, we pretty much just had rice and eggs that we bought on the night prior from the local grocery store, and that ended up costing us about $1. We finished that off with a coffee, right, that came with the Airbnb, and that didn't cost us anything. We then went out and wanted to go see some sites, right? As we travel and work and all these kinds of things, we can't just stay in the one place because I feel like that'll be a big waste for us while traveling. So we went out to see the museums, and the first museum that we saw was the Museum of Cyclonic Art. Now entry fee for that one was $9.44. Once we saw all of that, we stopped at a cafe to grab a coffee and a tea as well as a muffin just for a little pit stop. Now that one cost us $3.25. And then we went to the next museum, which was the National Archaeological Museum, which was also another entry fee of $9.44. We found a pretty cool Asian restaurant that day, and we ended up spending about $16.23 on dinner, including tips. So the total I spent on day number one in Athens was $73.05. Now for the business costs for that day, this was a little bit more hefty. So the number one cost that we had was our ad cost. So we spent about $2,023.98 that day on both on Facebook, Amazon and Google Ads. Secondly, we also paid my staff's 401k equivalent back home in Australia, and that ended up costing $1,455.20. Finally, for a new brand that I'm working on, we had a brand styling guide developed up by my designer that cost me $290. So the total for day one was $3,842.23. Now day two, let's start off with our Airbnb cost. So again, it's going to be $34.70 for a nice little apartment in Athens, Greece. Next, after doing some work in the morning, we went out and we went to go see some more sites. Now in Athens, there is a bundle pack that you can go ahead and buy. So it ended up costing us about $35.40. Now individually, if we were to go ahead and pay for this, it would cost us about $9.44. So we actually ended up saving a good amount of money by buying the bundle. So after seeing a few sites at the beginning of the day, we stopped for a juice and some coffee and ended up spending about $2.33. Next, we ended up having a traditional Greek lunch. I think it was actually just a tourist trap, but it was amazing nonetheless. And that ended up costing me about $11.80. Next, we continued to go ahead and look at these sites, but it was pretty hot that day. I think it was something like 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was just so darn hot. So my wife and I, we decided to catch the metro back home and relax and catch up on some work for the rest of the day. And that ended up costing me about $2.34. So the total amount I spent personally for day number two was $86.57. Now, in terms of business costs for this day, all we had was our ad cost. So again, it was $2,023.98. So the total for day two was $2,110.56. So day number 3 starts off with an Airbnb cost of again $34.70. Then after doing a morning of work and having a free coffee and everything like that, we went out to see some sights, and the first one being was the Panathenaic Stadium. Now this is an Olympic stadium that is completely made out of marble. Now this one was so amazing. The entry cost for this was $5.90, but wow, this one would, like, if you guys are ever in Athens, Greece, I highly recommend you guys to come here. You get a telecom with your entry ticket, and they just walk you through the whole history of it. It was really amazing, and despite it being so hot, my wife and I really enjoyed walking around and just taking in the sight. So for lunch I spent $16.23, and this one, despite it being in the middle of Athens in the most touristy area, it was pretty dang good, so we were happy to pay that. Next, we ended up getting a white monster from a local, like a side street store, and it ended up costing me $1.18. Then we moved on to the Acropolis Museum, and the entry cost for this one wasn't included in that bundle, unfortunately. I was pretty gutted about this, but nonetheless, we spent $11.80, and despite it being a little bit more pricey and despite being a bit gutted, it was nice just to get out of the heat and just to walk around the museum and just take in the sight. And finally, we finished off the day with some groceries. We ended up spending about $5.79 per person. Now with the business cost for day 3, it was again just the advertising cost. So that brings our daily total to $2,099.58. So it was finally the weekend. Now Saturday, day number 4. Our first cost of the day was our Airbnb, and I ended up spending $34.70. Now for the rest of the day, we didn't really do that much. I just caught up on some work and hung out with my wife. Next, we were introduced to a missionary couple who are serving here in Athens, Greece, helping the refugees from neighboring countries. And we were introduced by our pastor back home in Houston, Texas, Pastor Eric. So my wife and I wanted to go ahead and meet them just to hear their story. So we got into a taxi. It ended up costing us each about $6.49. Now once we arrived in their town, we went to the local grocery store. We picked up some local, some ice creams, some desserts and some coffees, just to thank them for inviting us in and for all their hospitality. So that ended up costing me about $19.18. After we spent some time just hearing about their story and them loving on us, but I needed to go and do my live calls. So I needed to catch a taxi back home where my whole setup was, and that ended up costing me about $15.12. Now after 3 hours of live calls, of private mentoring and the YouTube lives, I was pretty much done with work and pretty exhausted, but I wanted to go meet up with them and just to hang out. So I ended up catching a taxi that costed me about $8.85 to meet up with them. Then for that day, I wasn't really feeling that hungry, so I just completely skipped dinner, but my wife and I ended up treating them to a really nice dessert sit down where we just had some coffees, teas, all that kinds of stuff right by the water at a place called Riviera. And it was really great just to hear their story, as well as just to be able to spend some good time with them. And to top it all off, we had some fireworks right by the water, and that view was just so amazing. So after all of that was done, we actually ended up getting dropped off at our Airbnb, and my wife and I, after hearing these stories of this missionary couple, we were so compelled to just to help out. They were really serving and loving on these refugees and also hosting a competition where they would all go and film a short story of what it is like to be a refugee. So, they were giving cash prizes out of €100 each, and the grand prize was €500. So my wife and I wanted to sponsor the first prize winner and just donate about $600 total. That equates up to about €500. So individually, I ended up spending $300.90 for that donation. Now I really want to just spend some time just to take a second just to talk about this, because my wife and I are really intentional about being frugal and financially literate about just everyday things like eating out, all that kinds of stuff. We try to save money where we can by just cooking and eating at home and have more financial means, so that whenever we meet anyone that we feel compelled to help or donate to, without any kind of financial benefit for us, we always want to have that ability to just be able to give. So that's why we try to, as much as possible, we try to skimp on, eating out and all that kinds of stuff, even, buying clothes, just so we have a little bit more means to give money where it is used, where is needed more. So my total expenses, personal expenses for the day ended up costing $404.54. Now for the business costs, we had our usual ad cost of $2,023.98. Also, I had to pay a supplier for a bulk inventory order they placed, which ended up costing me $6,359.84. So the grand total for the day ended up costing me $8,788.33. That was a lot. Okay, so we are finally on day number 5. Now at this point of the video, things are really going to start to escalate. So the first cost of the day was a taxi to the port. That ended up costing me $11.80. Next, it was the ferry over to Santorini, and that ended up costing me $80.54. So as we exited off the ferry, it felt like we were in a different world. Like there was no virus, there was none of this kinds of stuff. Everyone was pretty cramped up together. We were a little bit worried, but nonetheless, when we got off the ferry, it was pretty cool. We had a hotel transfer already waiting for us, and they picked us up, and that ended up costing me $23.60. Now when we arrived into Ia, we were greeted by our host and taken to our hotel room. This place was awesome. It was right cliffside. We had our own private balcony and our private spa. It was so amazing, right? Now this Airbnb ended up costing me $468 per night, and more than 8 times what we usually spend, but that was okay because I really wanted to make this special for my wife. Now the next cost that we had was we went to a place called Peter Euros, a famous place in Ia, Santorini. I ended up spending $15.49. Now after lunch, we were pretty exhausted, so we ended up going to just a mini mart around our accommodation. We just got some basic, bottles of water, just some snacks and everything. Ended up paying about $7.67. Then we called it a night, spent some time in the hot tub, and we just enjoyed that night, and we just went straight to bed. So the total cost for my personal spending on day number 5 was $613. Now with business costs for that specific day, we had our usual ad cost, which was $2,023.98. And also we renewed our Hyro subscriptions, which ended up costing me about $938. So for our business expenses, we ended up spending $2,961.98, giving our grand total for the day of $3,574.98. Now day number 6, which was a Monday, we ended up heading down to the Black Beach area. The first cost of the day was obviously the Airbnb, which ended up costing me $468, followed by a bus ticket, which ended up costing me $4.48. Next, when we were at the bus stop, we had to wait a little bit, 20 minutes or so. Used this opportunity to go ahead and buy a Powerade and a Red Bull for myself and my wife, and that ended up costing me $2.95. So when we arrived to the Black Beach, we found this amazing beach lounge right there, with cabanas and everything on the beach, and we wanted to hire one and just spend the day just relaxing in these things. So ended up costing me for the hire about $17.70. Now for lunch at the cabana, I pretty much paid $34.22, but it was so amazing. We literally had a dish each, and then this massive fruit platter with also a smoothie and also coffee, and I really enjoyed it, and I would do it again every single time. So I would definitely recommend going down to the Black Beach, hiring out a cabana if you guys are ever in Santorini, and just enjoying the day, just spending the time there, reading, catching up on things, and just hanging out with your loved ones, friends and family. So finally, we ended up walking down to a restaurant called the Seaside. This was apparently one of the best restaurants in Santorini. Now this one was a little bit more pricey, but I just wanted to take my wife out to a nice dinner. So that one ended up costing me $99.71 for our main meals, a drink, and then also a nice little dessert as well. Now finally we had our taxi back to the hotel, which ended up being about 20 minutes or 30 minutes back to Ia, and that ended up costing me about $32.45. Total personal spending for that day was $659.51. Next we had my business costs, and to start things off we have our usual ad spend of $2,023.98. Then I need to pay my third-party logistics company just our invoices for the week, and that ended up costing me $4,300. Next, I also needed to pay my wages for my staff in Australia, and that ended up costing me $1,400. So we try to prepay our tax, so I ended up spending about $4,000 to the Australian tax office as well. So the grand total for this day, and this one was a doozy guys, it was $12,383.50. Yes, it was extremely expensive. To spend about $660 personally in a single day is absolutely crazy, but we know that it was a once in a blue moon kind of thing. We were in Santorini, just wanted to experience it. I'm really glad that we did, and I'm just really glad and happy and blessed to be able to do this as well. Now for breakfast, we went to a local brunch spot, and we had some crepes that were so amazing, and the coffee was extremely strong, so I really enjoyed that one. That ended up costing me about $10.62. Next, a trip to Santorini would not be complete without some sort of sunset cruise. Now we got some amazing deals through our hotel where we were able to join a semi-private sunset cruise on a catamaran out on the water. It was just so awesome. We spent from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. just to watch the sunset, and everything was included, including drinks and foods and snacks, everything like that. We also were able to jump into the ocean multiple times, so with 3 different stops. We were able to snorkel, we were able to experience a natural hot spring as well, and it was just an amazing experience. Highly recommended if you guys ever are in Santorini. So that sunset cruise ended up costing me about $177 per person. So finally, my wife and I decided to walk around the streets of Ia and have some gelato, and that ended up costing me $2.66. And to top it all off, because it was our last night in Ia, my wife and I wanted to get a souvenir that ended up costing us about $3.54. So the grand total for my personal expenses that day was $661.82. Now moving on to the business costs, we start off with our ad costs, $2,023.98. Next, I needed to pay for rent for the month for my warehouse back in Sydney, and that ended up costing me $1,336.41. So that leads us to a grand total for the day of $4,022.21. Now the grand total of my personal spending for this 1 week in Greece as a 29-year-old entrepreneur comes in at $2,579.09. Now one thing I actually forgot to mention was that this particular week I invested $1,200 into the stock market, crypto, and as well as our ETFs. I also tithe a portion of my income every single week, which ended up being $150. And right now I'm going to pull up a pie chart that's going to break down all of my expenses for the week, giving you percentages as well as the total amounts that I spent. So the actual amount I spent this week personally was actually $3,929, including my tithe as well as my investments. Now for my business expenses for the week, I ended up spending $39,249.94, which then both of them added up, personal and business. I ended up spending a grand total of $41,824.03. Now I just want to remind you guys, I don't actually spend this kind of money if we were stationary in one spot. We are mixing both work and travel, and a lot of these costs, because we were working out of them, I will be using them as tax write-offs as well. Now with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this new type of content. Now I really love all things personal finance, so I thought it was only fair to go ahead and do one of these types of videos and continue to do these videos as I travel around Europe while working. working, building my brands, and building this YouTube channel. So if I could ask you guys of a huge favor to smash that like button just to let me know whether or not you do like this, and also leave some comments down below to tell me what you thought about my week. And with all that being said, guys, I hope you guys are staying safe. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.